Thank you, Madam President. As member of the Legislative Black Caucus, Vice Chair of the Black Caucus, I too rise in memory of Stephon Clark. As clearly stated, he is not my constituent, nor did I ever meet Mr. Clark or know him, but I know hundreds, if not thousands, of African-American men in this country who fall victim of law enforcement every day. It is clear that there is an injustice in America when it comes to the brutalization of African Americans by law enforcement in this country. Since when is breaking in a car and running from the police punishable by death? Just 2 weeks ago, we introduced a bill in this legislation by my colleague from San Francisco who wanted to add additional enhancements for car burglaries. For some reason, they felt they couldn't convict people of burglarization. Well, Stephon Clark never had his day in court because the police chose to be judge, jury, and executioner. My colleague from Sacramento clearly stated the facts. African-American men are 3 to 5 times more likely to die at the hands of law enforcement. And in the words of the great statistician Jay-Z, men lie, women lie, but numbers don't. The numbers are clear. It's no reverence of life if you're black. Law enforcement are told to use every extreme measure before using deadly force, except if you're African American in this country. I had the opportunity to spend this weekend with Dr. Reverend James Lawson as we honor the 50th anniversary of Dr. Martin Luther King. He was his right hand. He was the disciple of Gandhi. He was the teacher of the nonviolent movement in the civil rights movement during the 60s. And he clearly stated, the evil that we see in America is based on our hearts. We have not transformed racism simply because we've eliminated slavery. If we still espouse the teachings of Jesus Christ that were 2,000 years ago, there are still members living in the rhetoric of racism and prejudice and discrimination here in this country, which is just 170 years removed from slavery. I also want to talk to the residents in Sacramento who express their inconvenience because of the frustration in the mourning of many people who both knew Mr. Clark and didn't know Mr. Clark. Let me apologize for your inconvenience, but it's obvious the only time a Black Lives matters to these folks is when they're running up and down a basketball court, catching or throwing a ball, or hitting a home run, or dancing and singing. Black lives should matter each and every day. Colin Kaepernick takes a knee, not because of any disrespect for this flag, but for his disappointment and the repeated execution of African Americans in this country. We can stay here all day listing the names: Ezell Ford, Eric Gardner, Eula Love, a single mother in 1979 who stood on her front porch simply trying to stop the gas man from turning off her gas in the heart of winter because she had 3 kids in the house, and she was killed. But this weekend, many might not even know, in Tennessee, there was an individual who not only had a gun, he had a rifle. Not only did he point it at law enforcement, he fired it at law enforcement. That individual is alive today to tell his story. Had that been an African American, I can assure you the ending would have been much, much different. So I ask this today as we remember Stephon Clark, that you remember Ron Settles as well, a young African American senior at Long Beach State who had a promising career in the NFL only to wind up dead in a jail cell. Oh, I don't know how that happened. I want you to remember, again, the name of Ezell Ford. I want you to remember the name of Oscar Grant. And I want you to remember all the unknown names, because I assure you, today, there will be more to come if we don't change our heart here in California and as a nation as it relates to African American lives in this country when we encounter law enforcement. And again, in the words of Reverend Lawson, it's just an extension of discrimination and racism and plantation politics that have ruled the land of this country for the last 400 years. And I ask that we change our hearts, colleagues, and remember Stephon Clark.